Well, going back to our top story, that ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas. We're going to get some more analysis on that with Jean-Loup Samaan, a senior research fellow at the Middle East Institute of the National University of Singapore. Thank you very much for speaking to us on France 24.
Thank you.
First of all, why did it take so long to reach this deal? I mean, especially if this is the same agreement that was put on the table in May last year.
Well, it seems that the main game changer here was the upcoming American president. The fact that you have a new White House team, and reportedly the Trump team put a lot of pressure on Netanyahu to accept that deal. So clearly we see here, I wouldn't say a victory of the Biden administration, rather a victory of the Trump administration, which is preparing its inauguration with a first win at the level of foreign policy.
What do you think then US-Israel relations will look like under Donald Trump?
Well, it's unclear, to be honest, in the sense that Trump didn't really talk much about the Middle East during the presidential campaign. The only big priority he seems to have for the Middle East is to address the question of Iran, and in particular the nuclear program of Iran, which is much more advanced than when he left the White House 4 years ago. On that topic, there's clearly going to be a common interest from both Israel and the US. Beyond that, it's very unclear how Trump and his team wants to invest themselves, for instance, on Lebanon, where you have also a major ceasefire process at the moment, and especially here on Gaza, with regards to the reconstruction of Gaza, which is ultimately the big objective of this ceasefire.
Well, Trump says he wants to build on this deal, rather, to expand the Abraham Accords, which normalized relations between Israel and a number of Arab states. He's then looking to Saudi Arabia to join in on this. But is this feasible? I mean, Riyadh says it wants Israel to commit to paving the way for a Palestinian state before it can consider this.
It's conceivable in the sense that Saudi Arabia didn't reject the idea of normalization with Israel. It only insisted on the condition, which has always been a condition, about the process towards a Palestinian state. So let's say, if we assume that, for instance, we have a ceasefire in Gaza that leads to this third phase, which is supposed to be this 3 to 5 year process where you have the construction of Gaza with a transfer of responsibility towards the Palestinian Authority or to any type of Palestinian body, maybe, I say maybe, Saudi Arabia would be in position to accept a normalization agreement. So I wouldn't say it's far-fetched, but definitely there's going to be a lot of challenges before Saudi Arabia admits that.
And what about going forward, the withdrawal of Israeli troops from Gaza? I mean, we're hearing from certain members of Netanyahu's war cabinet that want Israel to go back into Gaza after a brief truce. What's your take on this?
That's the big unknown, because that's going to be the big question to follow in the next 2 weeks. Basically, from the Israeli side, this is rather a hostage release deal rather than a ceasefire deal. The question is if Netanyahu actually commits to a permanent withdrawal of all IDF forces, what does that mean for his coalition with far-right government ministers who made clear that they would leave the government? In that scenario, that could lead to the collapse of Netanyahu's coalition, and as a result, elections in Israel. So it's very unclear how this will unfold. So far, it's in a sense just like we saw in Lebanon, where there was a lot of speculations about Israel removing its forces vis-a-vis Hezbollah. Here, we have to wait to see in coming days if Israel demonstrates its willingness to remove its forces, but it will happen in any case gradually. I don't think we're talking about a sudden removal of those forces. And again, we have to wait for the coming 2 weeks to see significant change in that field.
And the third phase of this deal, although not particularly very vague at this stage, it's set to lay out the reconstruction of Gaza after the war. But who could we see paying for that eventually?
Well, so far what we know is that two countries, Qatar and Egypt, would be involved, which is no surprise given their involvement in all the previous ceasefire attempts. The United Nations would also be involved. We can assume that there would be obviously a role for the United States. Beyond that, I would expect other Gulf states such as Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates to be involved, because they expressed several times their desire to get involved. The question is if those Arab states see Israel willing to accept the reconstruction of Gaza, and in particular to have a Palestinian entity, an institution, maybe the Palestinian Authority or something else, but something that would lead towards, let's say, Palestinian sovereignty over the Gaza Strip. And if there isn't an Israeli commitment to that, I suspect, unfortunately, that those Arab states would cease their commitment to this third phase.
All right, Jean-Loup Samaan, thank you very much for that analysis. We'll have to leave it there.